In week one of the 2025 NFL season, we had 13 total quarterback rushing touchdowns, including 4 quarterbacks who reached pay dirt twice. One of them was Daniel Jones, just like we all drew it up. Did you know that this was the first time in NFL history that we saw 4 quarterbacks with multiple touchdowns on the ground apiece, and that it's the second most rushing touchdowns by quarterbacks in a single week? The only time we've seen more was week 15 of 2020. For good measure, there were also 38 total passing touchdowns, which was in line with week one over the past 2 seasons, where we saw 35 last year and 37 in 2023. It's on to week 2. This is the numbers game. I'm Cynthia Frelund, and let's solve for Thursday Night Football. Guys, how good of an opening weekend was that? I mean, we saw a classic between Baltimore and Buffalo, maybe some MVP implications already in that one. We saw the likely beginning of something extremely special when J.J. McCarthy earned his first win in dramatic fashion under the bright Monday Night Football nights at Soldier Field, no less. And we also saw Geno Smith and Aaron Rodgers get wins in their debuts with their new teams. So much going on. It's so great to have football back. My week 1 results were 11-5 straight up, 7-8-1 against the spread, and 6-10 on totals. I'm coming to you for this episode from Northern California. You can see I'm not in my normal studio today. I'm actually working on some cool new things to bring to all of you. Yes, that is absolutely a tease. The background here, definitely not part of the cool new awesome things I'm thinking about here, but there are leaves changing colors outside, so just imagine that that is my background. That is the best thing about being from the Midwest. It's the thing that I miss the most. The smell of the leaves changing, the smell of fall. If you're from the Midwest, you know what I'm talking about. Crisp air, the whole thing. Just imagine that that is my lovely backdrop. Thursday Night Football is in perhaps the greatest Midwestern football venue, iconic Lambeau Field. I'm sure the leaves are changing colors there too, but the Washington Commanders come to town to test the surging Green Bay Packers under the lights. Ooh, it's going to be good. The Cheeseheads are 3.5-point favorites, and the total is 48.5 points. Both of these teams shared 2 traits in common from week 1. One on offense was the use of motion. No surprise there. Both used it on about 1/3 of their offensive snaps, so at least 66%. And on defense, it was nickel. They used at least 5 defensive backs on 85% or more of snaps. So let's figure out what the differences are and could be in this one. Let's start with when the visitors are on offense to break down what we could see from both teams, starting with their passing game. Jaden Daniels operated out of the shotgun on almost all of his snaps in week 1 against the Giants. The specific number, 86% of the time. And of course you want the specific number. This is called the numbers game after all. Anyways, I'm interested in this detail because the Giants' defensive front is their strength. So the strategy against the Packers and their pressure could be similar. So let's have a look. When the Giants rushed 4 or fewer, which is what they did the majority of the time, Daniels was 6 of 21 for 204 and had the second highest single game passer rating of his career against such dropbacks at 121.9. When the Giants blitzed, which they only did 9 times, he completed 3 passes for 29 yards and had the lowest single game passer rating against such passes in his career at 43.3. For reference, last season, Daniels established the rookie high watermark in the Next Gen Stats era for passer rating against the blitz at 114.7. The Packers defense only blitzed Jared Goff on 5 of his 43 dropbacks in week 1. The likely strategy here for both the Giants against Daniels and the Packers against Goff was to drop the extra defenders into coverage to force the quarterbacks to take the options that were available underneath. Goff's numbers showed that he only attempted 8 passes that were intended to travel over 10 air yards, and he connected on 5 of them for 89 yards. The Packers had an overall 29% pressure rate on Goff, so not exceptionally high. Micah Parsons played just 1 snap in the first quarter, but then he added 28 more between quarters 2 and the end of the game. So the pitch count that we heard about ahead of the game seems to have netted out in about, let's call it 30 plays. That's what I'm using to forecast for TNF, because unless we hear differently, I would imagine it's probably about the same just a couple of days later. Now, his impact though, massive. 3 total pressures on 17 pass rushes. One of them resulted in a sack, and by the way, he beat a double team for that. And one helped force the interception that Jared Goff had when targeting Amon-Ra St. Brown. Now, Goff's time to throw, it increased more than a half a second when Parsons was on the field versus off. No Parsons, Goff's average was 3.3 seconds. Yes, Parsons, 2.8 seconds. So you see the difference. I think that will also happen with Jaden Daniels. Parsons was also a big problem in the run game. No Packers defenders on-off splits were more dramatic at a 3.5 yard per play difference in favor of Green Bay than when he was on the field. Yes, it was only 7 plays, but to say that Micah is only a pure pass rusher is really missing a big part of what makes him so special and valuable. Overall, the Pack shut down the run to the tune of hitting Lions ball carriers behind the line of scrimmage on 73% of carries. That's the highest rate Detroit's rushers have been stuffed since Dan Campbell became the head coach. Ouch. They also only had one explosive run, just one. That's their bread and butter usually too. Remember, those are runs that net at least 10 yards. That was the fewest in a game over the last 2 seasons for the Lions. Washington had 8 explosive rushes against the G-men, with Jaden Daniels and rookie Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt each earning 3. 6 of Krosky-Merritt's 10 total rushing attempts were deemed successful. What does that mean? So at least 4 on first down, half the remaining distance on second, and converting on third. 39 of his 82 total rushing yards were considered over expected, and 14 were earned after forcing 2 missed tackles. Jaden Daniels' scrambling ability will be a big difference for that Packers front compared to Jared Goff in week 1, and likely in favor of the Commanders, as we already saw Daniels pick up right where he left off last season. Remember, he had 600 rushing yards off of scrambles last year, and all 3 of those successful runs were for at least 10 yards. They all earned a first down as well. So his rushing ability and scrambling ability against the G-men already on display. When the home team is on offense, look for the passing diversity from Jordan Love to continue. Love completed passes to 10 different Packers pass catchers in week 1, which included every receiver who ran a route except poor Malik Heath, who didn't get a turn. But he only ran 3 routes, and that was for the whole game, so let's just not count that. It's still 10 different pass catchers. Where did Love have the most success? Intermediate passes. So the 10 to 19 air yarders, where he was 6 of 8 for 108 and 2 touchdowns. Jaden Reed was the only receiver who earned more than 10 total yards after the catch for the game. He had 18, but that's one note to keep track of in general to see if this is a thing for them or it was just a function of last week's game script. Jordan Love was pressured 8 times against the Lions. It ended up being a 35% rate, but that's because the Packers didn't pass a ton. Now, the Commanders, they had 22 pressures on 45 dropbacks, which was a massive 49% on a lot of dropbacks too. That 22 was 5 more than any single game total from last season. That number, though, is a bit misleading because the game script for 1 and the Giants' O-line was without Andrew Thomas for 2. They're also very vulnerable in general for 3. Anyways, but where will the pressure net out in general? Maybe Washington's Dorrance Armstrong, who led the team with 9 total pressures. That tied his career high. Maybe he could be a guy to keep an eye on. Washington's front was also very disruptive in the run game with 7 run stuffs. To round this out, Josh Jacobs was stuffed 6 times by the Lions, but he also added 2 explosive runs. Bottom line, I have the Packers winning by 3, 27-24. Despite both teams having had great defensive production in week 1, the numbers suggest the changes in quarterback style and offensive output, so Jaden Daniels' mobility specifically against the Packers defense, and the offensive potential overall for Jordan Love against the Commanders, to all net together to drive a higher scoring game where the home team does get the win, but only by a field goal. I have the Pack winning in 53.7% of simulations. You'll notice my analysis so far didn't really get into pass catchers individually. That is because I saved them for a new segment we're calling Good for 6. 6 menu notes my model has occurring in over 50% of simulations. Today, the theme is all about the pass. So someone doing the passing or someone catching the passes. Number 1, Deebo Samuel to have more than 51.5 receiving yards. In week 1, he had 77 total receiving yards off of 7 receptions and 10 targets. 6 of those catches and 74 of the yards were between the seams. interesting where to line up. He also had a 36% target share overall, and just because we like to have all the numbers here, he added 1 rush for 19 yards and a touchdown. Number 2, Matthew Golden to have more than 2.5 receptions. He averaged 4.9 yards of separation, second most among wide receivers on his team last week. Okay, he only caught 2 passes, but I think higher scoring game, more passing opportunities. Let's go Matthew Golden to have at least 2.5, so at least 3. Number 3, Terry McLaurin to catch more than 4.5 passes. He hauls in 6.54 in my model, which rounds up to 7, but no matter what, that's considerably more than 4.5. Yep, I'm aware he had only 2 receptions last week, but the mismatch in this one is him versus many in that secondary. Number 4, let's stick with Terry McLaurin, but add a touchdown to the mix. I'm thinking this one will be on a downfield pass, so one of those 10 plus air yarders, and I'm also thinking it's like on a play where Micah Parsons he's not playing on that down. For whatever reason, let's just target Terry McLaurin when Micah Parsons isn't in. Number 5, Jordan Love to complete more than 18.5 passes. I have this as a faster paced and closer scoring game than last week where he went 16 of 22. In my model, the median number of passes that he throws, so kind of the average, is 35. Number 6, Jaden Daniels to pass for more than 1.5 touchdowns. This isn't total touchdowns, so if he runs, that doesn't count. This is only through the air. My model has him at 2.21 through the air. Let me know how you liked this first true TNF breakdown. Thanks for coming to Northern California with me. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I can't wait to break down the rest of Week 2's matchups and put them through the numbers game rigor. There are a ton of really interesting, good games to watch this weekend. Thank you so much for hanging out. Remember to follow, like, subscribe, get it in audio format. There are just so many ways to come hang out with me at Numbers Game. Don't forget the site. I update the player projections on Wednesdays. That's numbersga.me. All your player projections are there. Let's just hang out all week. How's that sound? Sounds good to me. I'll be back here on Thursday.